Yes. Today we are going to look at financial management. The lecturer, that's Farmer Samson, has tried to tell us even more of what we should know about financial management. But today we would expand on what he has done, and it will be more interactive because you would have to be free now. You are not before the regulator or before the examiner. You are now before the teacher himself, who would try to learn what is financial management, what is finance, how do you source for funds, why do you even need the funds? And if you need this, if you have these funds, how do you manage them to ensure that you get more funds and the business becomes profitable? So we'll go back to the rudiments and ensure that we get a grasp. Intermittently, we would allow you to ask questions so that explanations can be given. We are starting with what is finance. We hear about finance every day, but different opinions. But today we'll look at different shades of definition of finance, and we'll align ourselves with one as it is applicable to us as SME operators or entrepreneurs. Many definitions of finance exist. Finance may be defined as the provision of money at the time it is required. That's one opinion, that finance is just, yes, provide money when it is required. However, Oyekomi 2003 defined finance as money affairs and money matters. That means that finance has to do with money affairs, anything that has to do with money, then finance comes in. But beyond that, Hornby 2001 also says finance is money needed to support an activity, a project, a program, a business, an enterprise, or the management of money. So what caught my interest here more is the management of money. And that is what we are doing here today. I want us to align with that definition that finance is simply the management of money. So if you have money, it has to be properly managed. And when we talk about management, we are looking at planning, we are looking at organizing, we are looking at controlling. That is to say, if you have funds in your hands, or if you don't even have funds, how do you get the funds? How do you plan for the funds that you don't have? How do you plan for the ones that you have to be profitable? How do you control the leakage of such funds? How do you make the funds more profitable? And how do you organize them? That is finance. As entrepreneurs, we are supposed to be armed with how to manage money. If we get all the factors of production, land, labor, the capital that you have, for it not to be eroded, it has to be properly managed. And managing it means that you need to plan for it, you need to control it, and you need to organize it to make more money, to be more profitable, and for the business to be properly sustained and be sustainable. Hello? Again, we'll look at what IMF explains about the country's financial system. While we're looking at the entire financial system, is to know how these funds come in. Why do you even think that it is necessary for the Central Bank of Nigeria to align with NISA to propel the small and medium-scale enterprises for growth and development? It is to ensure that funds are moved from the surplus sector of the economy to the deficit sector of the economy. The government has an interest there The interest is to ensure that these funds that you have within you, within the economy, it is put into productive use. So the onus lies on us as entrepreneurs to utilize these funds for productive ventures, to boost the economy, to boost the developmental activities. So the financial system, the gamut of financial system, comprises the banks, the security markets, the pension, the mutual funds, the insurers, the infrastructures, and the central bank. So this, the entire financial system. And you will agree with me that the entire financial system, the banks, the security markets, have a role to play, even in generating funds that we need for the economy and in the utilization of such funds for the global youth, that's the global implication, that's economic growth and economic development, as well as for improvement of the individual in terms of per capita income. Because when your business is growing, when your business is doing well, first, your PCI will move. That's your per capita income will increase. At the same time, it will also impact on the economic development and economic growth of the nation. So these institutions that we have mentioned provide a framework and help channel savings into investment, thereby supporting economic growth. Yes, one thing is to save, one thing is to have money, another is to channel these funds into investable windows such that it will yield more money. You know, we have a simple income formula. Y, sorry, I don't have my chalkboard here. Y is equals to consumption plus investment, and Y is also consumption plus savings. That is, whatever income that you have, whether as an individual or as a nation, is equal to the consumption, what you consume, what is not propelled into productive sector, plus your savings. And what is saved is what is invested. So if you don't save, you will not be able to invest. By the time we look at the sources of funds, you see that savings is a major source of funds for entrepreneurs. But when you don't have this service, you can rely on borrowed funds. That's what NISA will do for us. We've said here that no enterprise can function without money. It sounds bogus, but that's true. Even the non-profitable organizations do rely on money. We have a support, biblical support to this, that money answereth all things. That means that you need money to function. Any business relies on money to function. Any organization relies on money to function. Even the non-profit organization, they also rely on money to function. But what is important is your ability to manage the money to make more money for sustainable business. Because if you have the funds and you don't manage the funds well, you are not likely to be sustainable as a business organization. You're not likely to maximize the shareholders' funds, because wealth maximization is key to every business. Hello? Hello?
Doctor, go ahead. We're with you. Go ahead.
Yes, at this point, I need them to align with me that no enterprise can function without money. I want to be sure that that assertion is correct. And if there's any contrary view that any business can drive without money, maybe from those that have done business before, let's share our thoughts. I think it's important we have a feelers. If there is any business that can thrive without money, that can thrive without funds. And let's see how it's going.
Someone has answered you. Someone said, you are right, doctor, go ahead. Which means that no business can thrive without money.
Very good. That means that applying for funds here is critical. We will need the funds to drive this business. Much as the idea is very important, the funds are also very, very important.
You have two other comments.
Okay.
Lotson Abba, he said everything, even life, can't at all, which means life can't thrive without money.
Very good. Very good.
So go ahead.
That's interesting. So money is used as a medium to buy goods. We're looking at the functionalities of money. To buy goods and services, and also functions as a standard unit of measurement and acts as a store of value. These are the cardinal functions of money, which finance tends to manage. But then the question is, how much effect, how much does money function as a standard unit of measurement in our country, Nigeria, for instance? The effect is highly diminished because of what? Inflation. Today, inflation is around 13%. So that means that if you take the loan, for instance, you take the loan of 10 million naira today, and you put it under your pillow, and you don't put it in any investable funds, that's any investment window, by the end of 10 years, that your 10 million would have been next to nothing by the going rate of what? Inflation. Therefore, it calls to be very conscious in managing funds, especially in developing economies like our country, where inflation eats deep into the funds that we already have. That also, what does it point out to? It also points out that for any investment that you are doing that is not giving you returns that is in excess of the inflation rate, then that investment is not worthwhile. I take it again. For any investment that you are undertaking in an inflation-ridden economy like ours, where inflation erodes the funds, the returns on such investment must be in excess of the inflation rate for it to remain in business. Don't forget the interest rate you're getting on this NISA is quite minimal. And if you utilize the funds very well, you are likely going to make enough money to cushion the effect of inflation and cushion the effect of what? The interest. So money may not be good store of value since it loses value with inflation. Finance can be likened to a lubricant. Too little of it, that is finance, can make a business grind to a halt. Lubricant, an oil that you have in your car. If you have too little of oil in your car, it is likely to grind that vehicle to a halt. But again, you must strike a balance. The balance is that, again, while too much of it may lead to business having to grapple with all types of projects, not minding their usefulness. That's why NISA or any credit approving authority will look at whatever you are applying. they will look at whether you need this money. You may ask for 10 million. The onus is for the assessor to look at the fact that you have requested for 10 million does not mean that you have the 10 million. Are you just taking the 10 million to go into pure water business in a very local environment? If that is it, you will not get enough returns to pay for the loans and pay for and cushion the effects of inflation and other vagaries of the economy. So too much finance is wrong, and at the same time, too little of it is also wrong. Then we must strike a balance. We must what? Strike a balance. That striking a balance is a balance between liquidity and profitability. We'll get there. Funds flow. We are now interested in looking at a funds flow. And that's what finance is typically all about. Funds flow. Finance talks about the generation or supply of funds, and also talks about what? The utilization of these funds. Just two. Once we are talking about financial management, two things come into mind. Generation of funds and what? Utilization of funds. At this point, we are applying for these funds. Your mind is concerned about the generation of funds. I need to get the 5 million from NISA. I need to get the 10 million from NISA. I need to get the 1 million from NISA. Then when you get the funds, we will now talk about what? The application of the funds. But then, why would you need the funds if you don't know what you want to apply the funds from? So it is even more important to start with the application of the funds before the generation of the funds. That's why some people go crazy. There are some simple questions. If you have 1 billion naira, what will you do with it now? I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with it because you never imagined it. You never thought of it. So it is good as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, to begin to think of what are you going to do with these funds? How much exactly do you need to know how much you want? What activity, what are the activities that your business entails? Each of the activities that you have must have a cost implication. For any activity you do in your business, it has what? A cost implication. So you must attach some cost to it. It is not largesse. NISA loan is not largesse. It is not a national cake. It is a repayable loan. It is a loan that you have to put into productive use, make more money, and use more money to make more money. A lot of people, tell me any successful businessman in Nigeria, I will tell you his road to getting loans. Yes, you need loans. Yes, I need loan, but I need to put those loans into productive ventures such that those ventures will generate more money for me to be able to pay off, settle off the expenses or the expenditures, as it were, make returns for the investors, because much as you might be a sole proprietor, there are also other businesses that will have other partners, other investors, business angels, venture capitalists. They need their returns, and you must make provision for their own returns to remain what? Sustainable in business. So we have talked about funds flow in terms of generation of funds and in terms of what? Utilization of funds. All you talk about in finance is generation of funds and utilization of funds. But how you generate it, how you utilize these funds, very important. If you draw a pie chart of how you spend your money, You need to draw a dichotomy on your capital expenditure and your recurrent expenditure. Your working capital and your and the assets acquisition. There must be a line, there must be a balance. If all you need the money for is for working capital, good, then you must look at the tenor. You know, what most people don't know is that the type of loan that you require or the type of activity that you want to fund determines where to source for these funds. If, for instance, you need funds for working capital, that is day-to-day running of business, and you go and get a term loan, you might not survive it. Or you need a loan for maybe land. Although Samson mentioned that for startups, you don't need land, but there are some scenarios where you might need land. Or you need to acquire machinery, machines that their long life, at least 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you need a term loan. You don't need an overdraft. That is where people are getting it wrong. That they will go to the banks and get overdraft facility for a tenant acquisition. For instance, you're going into agriculture. You don't need overdraft for agricultural venture. What do you need? You need a term loan that at least will match with the maturity of the investment. Hello. Hello, Christine.
Yes, we're here. We can hear you, Doctor. Go ahead.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
So that brings us to finance functions, which you also need to know. If you get these funds, but we are dwelling more on one. You have the investment function, you have the financing function inside of the finance function. You have the dividend function, and you have the liquidity function. So the finance or financial management as it is, you are concerned with investment function. The investment function is your ability to plow these funds into ventures that will give you returns. You have a pie chart of 100 million with you. Okay, let's say 10 million with you. Then it has to be delineated into investment function, dividend function, and the liquidity function. If you got this fund, what do you do with them? Are you going to invest? How much would you invest out of the 10 million? It is wrong for you to have 10 million and put all the entire 10 million in one venture without diversification. You are looking at portfolio diversification. What are the different lines of business? If you had Samson, will tell you different lines. You are a hairdresser, you do manicure, you do pedicure, you do finger pure or whatever. There are different lines. Or you probably have another hair salon to it. So if people are not coming for this, they are coming for this. If they're not coming for this, they are coming for this. So you should be able to know how much you want to plow into those different lines of business to give you returns. You should be able to know the forecast of your expectation. How much are you expecting from such different lines of business? And at the end of the day, know how much to plow into such business and how much to kick back. Dividend function, how much you have made this money at the end of the year, how much do you want to pay out by way of reward to investors? You will surely have investors. By the time your business grows, you would have people who will be interested in your business for you to expand. And when they invest, they expect returns. So if they expect returns, would you pay out? Suppose you make 1 million in a year, would you just pay out the entire 1 million? Or you need to retain part of it as retained profit while you pay part as dividend to the investors? We are all investors, maybe in all these banks, in all these blue chips, all these companies. You hear people at the end of the year, they declare dividend. It is not everything that they make at the end of the year that they declare as dividend. So they declare a portion, a proportion of such profit at the end of the year as dividend to reward investors. Sometimes they tell the investors, oh, we may not be able to pay dividend this year. We need to plow them back as retained profits into the business. So you must draw a line as to how much you want to pay out at the end of the year and how much you want to retain. Then again comes to what we have here again as types of finance. Different types, different sources. We have the internal finance and we have what? The external finance. Entrepreneurs, prospective entrepreneurs, it is important for you to know that the internal finance is good as a shock absorber. In fact, if you go to conventional banks, they will tell you, yes, how much is your contribution? What is your counterpart funding? How much is your contribution? What is your equity? So anytime you hear of equity, how much are you contributing? NISA you're applying for 5 million from NISA. NISA wants to know how much is your own contribution in that business. What is your stake? So it must be well stated. If you are contributing the land, it is also part of your contribution. Land should be given a value because it's part of the business. If you have a land in Lagos or have a land in Ogun State or in Asaba, you watch the land and the land is up to 5 million, you should be able to say your contribution to this business is your land that's worth 5 million. So that's your equity contribution. It can be in form of a capital. So if any organization wants to lend you money, they will look at your stake. What is your stake in this business? Are we just giving you 10 million or 5 million to run the business when you don't have your contribution? Your contribution must be represented in monetary funds. So finance is referred to as, that's the equity fund is referred to as your contribution. This is solely owned, contributed by stakeholders within, and it is referred to as internally generated funds. The stakeholders, it can be you, your wife, and your children contributing these funds. That's your contribution. That's your equity contribution. Then brings us to what we call the external finance. When we are talking about the external finance, this is called borrowed funds, which is also referred to as what? Debt. So if you have your internally generated funds, your contribution, which is equity, the external funds will determine on the equity. When they are doing assessments, they tell you, they want to know how much is your contribution. There should be a ratio. Or is all your funds from borrowed funds? Assuming you're already an existing business, you run an existing business, they look at your financials. All the funds you have are all borrowed funds. Borrowed from Zenith Bank, borrowed fund from Fidelity Bank, borrowed fund from Bank of Industry. Then it means that you are highly jarred. They use the word highly jarred. That means that the jarring ratio is quite high. The exposure is quite high. So no other bank or no other institution will be disposed to give you funds if you are highly charged. That's if your funds are more. If your loans, if you get loans from different organizations, don't forget there's a global finance document that's coming up into play by August. That wherever you borrow money from now, any bank in this country would have access to it, so they can extinguish one loan from your savings in another bank. That means if you have a savings in Zenith Bank, for instance, and you pick up a loan from GT Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, if you're unable to pay it and you refuse to pay it, Guarantee Trust Bank has the right to look at your credit balance in Zenith Bank and do a set-off without even taking any recourse from you. So there is a mirror. So what is important now is that much as we encourage people to borrow, we also encourage people to contribute into the business. For whatever you contribute into the business is your stake in that business. And it will also determine how much that can be given to you. I tell you, if you have a business and you contribute, maybe whether land or capital, or whatever you have in that contribution, and it's about 5 million, and you're asking NISA for 15 million, they'll be more disposed to give you. But if Mr. B has no contribution in that business and he wants NISA to fund the business 100%, NISA will be also a bit apprehensive, because they could be scared that you will just take the entire 10 million and marry wives across the world, from Kenya, from the US, from anywhere. But if you have a stake, they will have more. No, that's the truth. So you must show a stake. You must show a cost. You know, people have different needs, and they want to meet it by all means. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, they have different needs. They have different needs, but they'll be looking for how to meet these needs by all means. Some people have their priority as getting new cars, the latest brand of car in town. That's what they want to buy. But to meet it, they know that they don't have the funds. And they know that they can, NISA, CBN wants to support. So they can look for different ways to go into that and get funds. And when the funds arrive, they will go purchase the latest brand of the car and forget about, plowing the money into business venture, which the government is trying to encourage. Because the essence of all these loans that they want to give is to boost economic growth and development. Yes, there have been hues and cry that government is not doing enough to support business. And that government is ready to support business. Government is ready. So you must be able to show cost too, that you are ready to use these funds judiciously to grow the economy. By the time you start up today as a 3-man business, as a 1-man business, and it grows up, who says you cannot expand and go into stock exchange? You go into limited liability and expand your business. That's the truth. And once you expand your business, you employ more people. And once you employ more people, you reduce what? Unemployment. And once you reduce unemployment, you reduce economic and political vices. You reduce vices in the economy. So there's a circle. There's a chain. And that's what government wants to achieve. So if you package your business plan very well, show your equity contribution and how much you require as borrowed funds, then they'll be more disposed to giving you a facility. Then again, we are looking at equity versus debt. So again, what's equity? Equity talks about what? Internal funds, internal finance. Whereas debt talks about what? External finance. What are the sources of equity? Your personal resources, your personal savings. Yes, you always have personal savings. You have individuals that are ready to fund this business, business angels. We call them business angels. They are ready. Once you have a good idea, they are ready. They tell you they are interested in your business. They don't want to participate, but they are interested in giving you funds to finance a business venture. The venture capitalists, they are there. Then in addition to these venture capitalist business angels will help you grow your equity. They are part of the owners of the business. They are what? Part of the owners of the business. They are equity providers. They are not asking for interest, but they will get a share of their returns on investment. They will get a share of their returns on investment. And once they have this share of their returns on investment, they will help you grow the business. Again, we'll go back to debt, which is the reason why some of us are here. There are different sources of debt, different sources of borrowed funds. It is important to look at it. Those sources, yes, you can borrow friends. You can get from your real estate. What are these banks? You can get from microfinance banks. You can get from development banks, banks of industry, bank of agriculture. This, for instance, you are in agriculture. Apart from the nicer loan that you want to get, you can also access loan from Bank of Agriculture, because these are development banks that are dedicated especially for the growth of specific sectors. Government dedicates some funds to these development banks so that they can service specific sectors, and their loans are usually single digits. Same Bank of Industry also finances and sponsors loans from the industrial sector, specific sectors. You have the microfinance bank, like for instance, the nicer microfinance bank. Then the other sources of credit are like the business suppliers, the trade credits. Some people would not want to agree, but I tell you, it's also a source of credit, a source of loan. Do you know that if you go to Onitsha market now and get, it's a source of finance. Do you know if you go to Onitsha market now and get goods on credit, they have funded your business, because you're ordinarily supposed to pay. You're supposed to pay cash, but because you're not paying cash, they have given you goods. And when you have these goods, you trade the goods and make profit. And at the end, you pay back the loan. That's, you pay back the debt, and you're not paying interest. They may have factored in the interest into the credit anyway, but on the face of it, they are not telling you that the interest on this credit they are giving you is 20%, but it's a trade credit. You also have equipment loans. You want to buy some equipment, there are leasing houses that will give you loans. Note, it is expected that an appropriate finance means be maintained, as too much of loan will be bad for the business. Somebody would say, no, doctor has come again. Too much of loan will be bad. Yes. If you get too much of loan and you have no cost, you have no activity to match those loans, they are bad, because you will not get returns that are enough to pay for to offset the loan, and also take care of the erosion that is being melted in by inflation. Inflation erodes the funds. Like I mentioned today, inflation is about 13%. So by the time you look at your interest, the interest you're paying on the loan, you add it to inflation rate, then your returns must outweigh these rates. The returns on investment must outweigh these rates. Rate of inflation and rate of what? The loan or the loanable funds. So gentlemen and ladies, it's important you strike a balance. Much as you need this loan, you must look at the activity. What are your activities? How much do you need? How much do you require for each of these activities? How much do you require for working capital? How much do you require to buy your assets? Then how much do you require as even as a float? Contingency, you recall from what Mr. Samson told us, in that schedule, 10% of those your cost is your contingency. You don't need to calculate it. Once you put other costs together, 10% of it will give you what? Your contingency. You add it up. It tells you how much you require as your loan requirement. So finance is very, very key, and we must have a mindset to manage, to attach value to every activity, every business activity that we have, and at the same time, attach value to every business activity, and also have a mindset to calculate, the returns. Because if the business this is not a largesse. It is not grant. It is, I hope we know that it is not grant. Grant is non-repayable, but loan is what? Repayable. So because it is repayable, you must look at payback period. How long will these funds take to begin to pay itself? Like I said, if you need a short-term loan, the short-term loan should be used to fund short-term investments. The long-term investment should be funded by what? Long-term loans. So if you go and use short-term loans to fund long-term investment, it is a mismatch. It is a mismatch. Maybe let's hear from the audience, because at this point, I need them to let us know what they are into. Because if your business is just a working capital business, you have a working capital needs, you don't need long-term loans for that, because you may not be able to. But if it's for long-term expenditure needs, then you need long-term loans. Otherwise, it brings about mismatch. Think of a man that wants to buy a machine that the long life of that machine is like 10 years. And he goes to the bank to pick an overdraft of 10 million. And he starts paying back day to day. He's making interest, he's paying interest, and he will, at the end of the year, he's expected to pay back. That's why a lot of them are running on oxygen, because they don't know the type of loans to apply for the type of business that they do. So we must align the type of business that we do with the type of loan that we require, or the type of finance that we require, so as not to be guilty of what we call financial mismatch. Maybe let's share experience. Christy, allow them to talk.
Yes, they can.
Why do they actually need this loan?
Okay, you can drop your thoughts, or you raise your hand so that I will mute you. If you want to speak, you want to make a comment, raise your hand electronically, then I will mute you to talk. Or Okay, we have Idris Mohammed Vulego.
Very good. Let's get a feedback from them. Why do they need this?
Mr. Idris.
Hello.
Mr. Idris. Mr. Idris, can you hear us? Mr. Idris Mohammed, can you hear us?
What do they do? What does it do? And why?
Okay, Mr. Idris, go ahead. Go ahead and answer the question.
Or share your experience with us.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Mr. Idris Muhammad Vulebo, we can hear you. Okay, I think he went off. Another person, it's Mr. Omiriya Joseph. Mr. Omiriya Joseph, please make your comments. You have been on mute. Make your comments. Mr. Omiriya Joseph. Mr. Omiriya Joseph.
I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Mr. Omiriya Joseph. I'm a fashion designer. Yeah, from his explanation, I think what I'm looking for the credit facilities for long term, because I want to do an expansion in my business. I want to buy more machines, and the lifespan of most of these machines are above 5 years. So my intention is to do an expansion from our current business where we are running on just 4 sewing machines. We want to expand to get to a level where we can meet up with the rising demand from our clients. Thank you.
Okay, very good. You have an existing business. Now yes, you want to expand. You want to expand, and you want to acquire machines. You see,
yes, sir.
That's exactly what we are talking about. Because the machines that you need, at the end of the day, they are not going to serve you for just today. They are not serving you. Yeah.
I'm you.
Yes. They're not serving you for just this year. They're going to serve you for a period of 5 years or more. And you will spread, you amortize. There's what we call amortization, depreciation. You are going to amortize their values over time. So by the time you look at the share of what you are going to pay in 1 year and what interest is accrued on it, then you are gain that you are in. That's what I mean. So it's that you need a long-term loans to finance what long-term investment. So you won't be running oxygen to pay back today or pay back tomorrow. At least by the end of 5 years, 6 years, you would have recouped enough funds to pay back. So it makes sense. But again, you must also show costs. If you have been in business, how much is worth your business? That's equity. You understand? What you say, you already have existing business. You have machines that you have already. You probably have a land or you have a place where you are staying. You have a building. All these things must be given financial attachment, financial worth. And that's your net worth. You also need to share the loans. Are you indebted to any other bank? Are you indebted to any other community bank? If you are indebted, they may have used your facilities as collateral. So no other bank will want to be exposed to you. Do you understand? But if you are not indebted, you put yourself on a good slate, because it will be seen that, yes, you have been doing this business up to this point with your own funds. Let's say your business is worth 5 million as at now, and you show a focus. By what time by the time you are supposed to do something like focus, look at a focus that if you're selling about, let's say, 1,000 quantities of clothes now with your 5,000, By the time you're that with your 5 million worth net worth, by the time you're giving 10 million, your 1,000 quantity of clothes would have expanded to what? 3,000. And if that is what it is, then you need funds, because what you have now cannot take care of what you need for future expansion. But for somebody who's focused, who do not, because if you do also, you need to do also your sales forecast. How much is your sales? What are you expecting? What I mean sales forecast is not like what you have sold, what you are expected to sell. Suppose you expand your business. You are supposed to do what we call projected cash flow. We'll get to that. The projected cash flow will show us how much is you're expected to get from these funds over time. Otherwise, you may not need these funds. They will look at those things and see whether you actually need the funds or you don't need the funds. But what is key here is that you have the equity. I wouldn't want to ask you, how did you get the funds that you were using to do? But if you want to share with us, you can share with us. But if you don't want to share it and you want to keep it personal, let it be personal. Hello? Hello? You say if you want to share with us.
I'm here.
If you want to share with us that you have been running this business with your money or with funds from other sources, you can share with us, and how much equity that you have, how much have you been retaining some funds at the end of every year? Just be honest to us. Or you don't know about it before, that there's what we call retained earnings. You need to keep back part of your profits.
Okay, sir, we still have some hands up. Some people want to make a comment.
Okay, very good, very good.
Okay, can I go on?
Let him go on. Let him
Idris
go on.
Muhammad. Idris Muhammad.
Yes, let him tell us.
Idris Muhammad, please, you can speak. You can make your comment,
Okay.
Idris.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm Idris Muhammad Vulego. I manage a computer center that about 8 years now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah,
About
okay, yeah.
8 years now. In every year, I used to graduate student 2015. So now what I need now, I have a local government estate and there's a university located in the local government and there's no any DI or large format printing machine. So I want to use this opportunity of the NASAL to establish a printing press in that local government. So I need an idea from him.
Okay, doctor.
Yeah, he said he needs an idea to, well, the idea you have here is a financing idea. The idea should come from you. I wish we were able to play a video here. The idea should be your own idea, but we'll tell you how to finance it. That's this course. You want to go into a printing press, but that's not what you were doing before. That's a different line of business. I hope you know. Hello, Mr.
No,
Idris.
I'm into it, but just hello, I'm into it, but I don't have the machine.
I thought you said you are
Hello.
into computer training.
Yes, I'm into the printing, but I do not have. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can
Go
you
ahead,
hear me?
Mr. Muhammad. Yes, Mr. Muhammad, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, I said I'm into the printing, but I don't have my own personal machines. Understand? I'm doing printing. I'm also teaching students computer data processing. So it's two things I'm doing. So I'm into the printing already, but I need the machines now because I have a local government in my place, and the university is located in that local government, and there's no any printing machine. The printing is not new to me. I'm into it already.
Okay, so your question, what is your question is, what are the financial steps you will take? Or
Yes.
okay, whether you okay.
That shows that I'm trying to expand. I'm trying to expand the business.
Okay.
Yes, the first is you need to know what do you need. You understand? You need a printing machine. You need a building or an accommodation. You need probably some labor, that's in terms of manpower. You need to attach values to each of these activities, each of these expense heads, to know how much you require. Yes, how much is the printing machine? How much, how much are you going to pay for the operator you're going to employ? Or are you going to be the operator yourself? How much are you going to pay for the building or the accommodation where you're going to stay? And you need to tell us exactly how much each of them cost to know how much you need. How much can you fund from your own business that you're doing? Do you have anything left over from the computer business that you have been doing? If it's going to take you, for instance, 10 million, how much are you going to fund from it? What's your counterbalance funding? You know, I like people to express that they have a stake in it. Because when you say you have a stake, if you want NISA or you want CBN to fund holistic, nothing says they won't fund, but they will fund more when they know you have a stake.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making. So your contribution to the funding is what we call equity.
Okay.
Do you understand? Your contribution to funding is what we call what? Equity. Whereas old funds that is coming from NISA is what we call what? Debt. So, and we are saying that there must be a match between debt and equity.
Okay.
It must be a mix. Or are you getting entirely the 100% to be funded by NISA? If you want them, nothing says they cannot fund it. If they look at your pedigree in other business that you've been doing, if you have a stake, you have a contribution, expressly state it that your contribution in this business is this and this and that. So with that, you'll be able to sound more convincing that that at least you have a stake in the business, or that is going to be funded by maybe a relation or from other sources, or how much is being funded by other sources. For instance, if you're doing a job, if you think you are getting funds from a job, you state it, how much you're getting from other sources, so that they know how much you have been able to get from other sources, from other sources of loans, and how much NISA can fund within the period. But when you don't state it, it will be misleading. Let's give others the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, doctor, okay.
Yes.
Nobody has, we don't have any question now. So maybe you should continue, sir.
Okay, I thought some other persons wanted to say something.
No, we don't have any other question here, and nobody raised their hands.
They have dropped their hands. Okay, we
okay,
go.
Okay, somebody is up. Somebody is up now.
Okay. Go ahead.
Educate Nathan Fredericks. Educate Nathan Fredericks. Educate Nathan Fredericks. Can you hear me? Educate Nathan Fredericks.
Good afternoon.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I would like to appreciate Doctor for all that he has been teaching us today. I have one situation I would like to share, and I believe it may not be only me that had the same situation. I have a business that I'm running, registered a limited company. I deal on solar installations. But for like 3 years, the company was registered in 2017. for like 3 years. I've just been running the company. It's not. I've not been running it properly. I usually get few installations, and I will do that just like a normal business. It has not been organized properly, and at this point, I'm trying to apply for a loan to expand. I need a guidance on how to proceed in writing the business plan. Do I start as a startup business, because nothing much in terms of organization has been put in place? Do I start as a startup business, or if I'm starting as an existing business, how do I go about it in order to be able to access the loan? Because right now, in as much as I'm into installation, I want to go into sales of solar products in addition to installation. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing your fears. You know, the business is registered, right? It will be important to give a history of the business that you have. It will not make or man. Just tell us how you've been doing this business, and that for one reason or the other, you know, for lack of funds, you've not been able to expand the business. You state it clearly, because if you say you registered a business, let's say 10 years ago, and you don't have history, you understand? If you don't have history, somebody may want to ask, what is the history of this business? You tell the history, so that the history may have been truncated by paucity of funds. And that's why you need the funds. And you need, you know, some people are somehow skeptical to the fact that they think because it's a one-man business, it should be run by, it's an entrepreneurship, sole proprietorship, it should be run by one man. No, you can register a business and get experts to help you drive it. You hear about Davido today, for instance. Davido is simply a music maker, but I'm sure he's not. He has managers, he has other experts that help him drive his vision, help him drive his idea. That you have a business idea does not mean you must drive that business alone. You understand? You have the get today, you know, software experts, you know, but it's not doing it alone. You need experts, other experts to help you drive your idea. And in driving it, you have some cost activity for these people. You need a space, an office space. You need this, you need that, you need that. And that's why you need this to be able to grow this business that has stagnated over years. You are just honest. And that this is the initiative you want to bring into it. This is the innovation you want to bring into it. This is the creativity you want to bring into it. You give a history and tell us why the history has suffered all this while. And now that with the introduction of this, introduction of that, you would make an inroad. Just part of financial management is full disclosure.
Okay, and sorry, doctor, he wants to know, why applying for the loan on his business plan, is he going to write that his business is a startup or an existing business?
Well, for me, he has started the business, so that there isn't need to lie. He said he has been in the business, but the business is not doing well. That's what I heard him. The business is not doing well. And from what I heard, he wanted to do the business just alone.
Yes.
He cannot do the business alone. There will be other experts, and to get other experts, you need more funds. You need more funds, you need more expertise to expand. And each of these activity would have funds attached to it. You cannot say you registered a business for 10 years. If you've registered it 10 years and you've not operated it 10 years, be honest enough, I registered this business and I haven't operated it for 10 years. I just woke up from my slumber. That's the way I don't like people to bottle up things. You have been operating it before, Tell us how much you have invested in such business and what you have gotten. You may have suffered a loss because a business that you need 10 million to do, and you're just trying to rough it with 200,000. It cannot go. You understand? Your business that you need 1 million to do, you are roughing it with 50,000. It cannot go because you end up working for your suppliers, you end up working for other stakeholders, and you will get nothing out of it. That's why sometimes, you know that both lenders, if you have a loan of 5 million, for instance, you know, like I told you, I worked in bank for over 10 years. I've been a lender for a long time. So you could come and you could have reason to take a loan, let's say 5 million, and due to vagaries, economic vagaries, due to economic issues, problems, you're unable to meet up. You may present the facts. The lender will look at the facts on ground and see, oh, I think it's actually cash flow problem that's this man's problem. I think it's actually this man's inability to get more funds that's the problem. So that's what I think. There should be full disclosure, because when you are covering up and when they discover any lie or trace of lie in it, they will not be disposed to give you. They can Google.
Okay, thank you, Mr. HK Nathan Fredericks. I hope you are you okay with the explanations? Mr. HK Nathan Fredericks. Okay.
Oh, he's not there.
He's not, yeah. Okay. Oh, he was mute again.
Oh, he was mute. Sorry.
Mr. HK Nathan Fredericks. Mr. HK Nathan Fredericks, can you hear us?
I think he's mute. We can unmute him.
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, he's now muted.
Okay, doctor, go ahead.
Hello.
Now muted.
Okay.
Oh,
can you hear us, Mr. HK Frederick?
Also muted now. There's an interplay there. Unmute him. Oh, okay, let's go ahead if he's not. Maybe
I can hear you.
Go ahead and talk to him.
Mr. HK Nathan Fredericks.
Hello?
Yes, talk to us, right?
Speak to us.
Okay,
Yes, speak.
okay. So
are you okay with the explanation?
I'm very okay. I think 90% of what he's saying is true. It's actually true. I'm trying to run the business alone, and I've been having work. I've been doing installations, not like I've not been doing some businesses. But I've been trying to drive it alone, and because of lack of funds, I couldn't employ some experts. I think that's the main cause from his explanation. I understand that is the main cause of the problem I'm having. So thank you. I will work on it and be sincere about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, doctor, you can go ahead. We don't have any more hands raised.
Okay, no more hands on grounds. Okay. Yes, I want us to also take a look at the markets, the type of markets that we have. We're not talking about a Bogonogo market. We're not talking about...
Sorry, doctor. Someone just raised hand. Sorry, please. Professor Musarafat.
Oh, wonderful.
What's wonderful about it? Because he's a prof.
Let's hear from the prof, please. Let's hear from the
prof. Please speak to us. Prof, you have been on mute. Your microphone is on mute. Please speak to us.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Well done, sir. It's your boy, sir.
No, Prof.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Prof.
Thank you. I appreciate your lecture and I have been following you. I have a business. I'm working presently as an accountant, but I have a personal business I'm running. The business is located in Kogi State. 2 years or 3 years ago, I discovered, I observed something. I asked a question earlier that was related to it day before yesterday. I'm here in Abuja, but I found most of the people that are working in different fashion house, different fashion stores in Abuja here, large number of them are from Kogi State. And they are really doing well, doing good in terms of their productivity. And I look at it that some of them, most of them, when I observe, they lack educational qualification to practice the work. And back at home, there is no organized labor market for them. So they come here, work at cheap labor rate at mercy of their employee. So and I started nursing the idea of a big project. However, because the proposal I wrote, anyway, I tried to reach out to a relevant government agency to look at it for me, but to no avail. I couldn't scale through. Nobody gave me attention. So I actually thought to myself, I can actually start small myself and look at where I want to go. And for over a year and a half now, I opened a textile material shop that I am selling flower materials, Indian gown, Indian materials, and so on. So before this year end, I have a plan to take the second step of this my dream. However, one of the major challenge and fear that I have in business is the risk. And I definitely don't know any business that goes without risk. However, I found out that in most cases, when most of your investments are put in fixed asset, if they are put in fixed asset, generating a return, constant return often is always slow. And at that moment in time, if you are not being careful very well, you can run short of cash flow. I have little that I am running with presently in the textile shop, but I actually want to go into opening up a mini fashion house where I will have some number of tailoring machine and design machine to do it. Now, looking at when I immediately heard about this NISA program, I quickly put in. But my fear and my concern mostly is this. Number one, I don't know the structure of the loan in terms of repaying back. That is number one. Number two, because whatever I'm going to get from it goes directly for the fixed asset, which they cannot, they have a long time cash flow generation. I don't know the structure of their rate of return that they expected for the loan. Then number two is that I want the forum to advise me what minimum of equity to debt should I go for to ensure that the burden of the loan at the end of the day doesn't break my back, and as well that I should be able to afloat even though I am going for fixed asset investment at this second phase of my dream. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Prof. Doctor, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Prof. You said a lot of things, but just to address a few, but more will be addressed by the NISA staff tomorrow. I'm sure he'll be here tomorrow. He said he'll be here.
Grace. Yeah.
Yes. So just try and make some of these questions to him, but I'll try to give you an idea of what is expected. Much as I said that there is, you need to balance between equity and debt. There is no straitjacket
approach.
Straitjacket ratio between equity and debt. Ideally, some persons will tell you 10% is okay. 10% of equity, 20% of equity, 30% of equity. You understand? Some organizations will tell you 10%, even in their form, they will tell you, they will specify it there. 10% equity contribution, 20% equity. Even the federal housing loan I will take. I hope you know, if you are a civil servant, there is equity contribution. Hello? The idea is to ensure that you have a counterpart funding. But to be honest with you, I don't know if there is any ratio specified by NISA, except maybe by tomorrow, if the guy from NISA is able to tell us if there is any. But it is my own admonishment that people should have. I've heard him, but I didn't hear him talk about it. But it is my own, we are from the, what will I call it? We are from the classroom. I'm a lecturer of the university, a lecturer of finance. So I am from the background of the teacher. Then he is from the background of the industry now. So, but I don't know if they specify. If they don't specify and you have it, it will give you a plus. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
I say there's no specification and you have it. Even if it's 10%, 20%, 30%, just express it. It will give you a plus. I'm sure whoever that is looking at it, the credit officer knows that there's always a score for equity contribution. But that ratio, I don't know. I also don't know, when you talk about rate of returns, they are not the one to tell you about rate of returns. You are the one to tell us what's the rate of returns. And except you're talking about rate of interest. Interest rate is rate of returns. Rate of returns is what you make. It is calculated based on your profits at the end of the year, over your the assets employed. Then you get your rate of returns, rate of equity. That the profit over the equity contribution will give you ROS, give you rate of returns on the asset employed. So that's for. But if it's interest rate, it will also be specifically expressed by the NISA expert. They will tell you what maybe probably sometimes it is graduated in terms of the amount. I don't know. Sometimes they tell you from so amount to so amount you pay this, from so amount to so amount you pay certain value. But when he's around, he should tell us what is there. So that's, I think, gives you the structure, gives you the tenor. I know you have like 10 years, but when he's around, he will be able to tell us the technical aspect of the loan structure. Hello?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
That's that. When the Samson is around, these are nicer people. We are scholars from the classroom. Tell you what is obtainable and what you require to make your loans fly. I think that should be able to help you, even in structuring your loan. If it's not well structured this way, but in terms of
Doctor, yes. We have someone else. We have some other hand raised. Idris Muhammad. I think he has made a comment before. Prof, are you okay with us? Are you okay with the explanation?
Yes, ma'am, but please, I just need one little advice. I want to ask, this very project I'm working on is very big, and I'm afraid if I should put it in my business plan, NIFAL might not give me attention. They might think it's too big. So please, do you advise me when submitting my business plan, I shouldn't make it big, just piecemeal as I am doing it, or I should write the whole of my business plan and submit?
I don't know what you mean by being big. Being big that you require more than 10 million. That you require more than 10 million.
I require more than 10 million, sir.
If you require more than 10 million and you have equity contribution. Yeah. If your equity contribution is able to meet the funding gap, you understand? You have a funding need of, let's say, 10 million. There are classifications for SMEs, provided you fall within the SME. Once you fall within the SME classification, then all you need to do is that I'm requesting for 10 million. That's the maximum you can give me, but this and this from other sources. You understand? You state it. So it shows if you are the one contributing to those other ones, it makes it clear. Me, I will not for once, I will not advise anybody to clone any part of the information, because that's against the full disclosure principle of financial management.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So if they cannot even fund it, they can link you to other funding agencies. We have the Bank of Industry, we have the Bank of Agriculture. Yes, if you fall between the Bank of Industry, you can be moved to Bank of Industry if they don't have the capacity to do that alone. But by the time you begin to cook figures so that you get the loan, that means that if they give you the 10 million, it will not be enough for you to run the business. And once it's not enough for you to run the business, the money will leak. It will be eroded. And once it's eroded, you cannot pay back.
Of course.
It's already a bad loan, dead on arrival.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Let's attend to others because you have less than 45 minutes.
Okay.
Let's attend to some. I hope you are okay now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
What I will do is in the next
Idris. Idris. We have Idris Muhammad Bulebo. He spoke before. Probably he still has something to say. I don't know. I've unmuted him. Mr. Idris, please go ahead and speak here.
Hello, it's a question.
Okay, go ahead and ask.
Okay. Is the NASAL going to provide the facility, or they are giving you a fund to go and buy the facility?
Well, these are technical or operational issues. When Mr. Sampson comes tomorrow, you would ask him. But I tell you, the funds.
That notwithstanding, on the platform, there's a place where they can drop their questions for NASA to answer.
Okay.
Yes, so if you go to your to the platform, you see where you can send some questions to NASA. They will give you answers to such questions.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right.
Okay, maybe this will make us. Let me explain a few things to you. What we are preparing you for is to equip you so that NISA can give you the loan. Do you understand? We're giving you a theoretical framework. We're giving you the exposition and expose that you need to have such that you can apply these funds judiciously. You require this certificate of training to be able to get the loan.
Okay.
Because if we don't train you, they can't blame you. There's a slogan in training: if you don't train them, don't blame them. So we are training you on how to apply the funds, how to source for the funds, such that you can apply them for your own benefit and for the benefit of the economy and the program.
Okay.
The government, central bank relies on us so well. That's why they appointed us as an EDI. They believe in what we can do. And that's what we are doing now, trying to expose you to the internal gamut of financial management, such that you can manage this finance and make more returns for yourself, you'll be a better person. You boost your PCI and boost the economic growth and development of the country.
Okay.
I think that's
okay. I hope Mr. Idris, you're satisfied with the explanation now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Doctor, you can go ahead. We don't have any more hands up.
Okay, thank you. So back to the types of markets. It's also good to expose you to these types of the different types of market that we have, and before we concentrate on one. We have two major types of markets. We have the financial market and we have the real asset market. The financial market talks about the capital market and the money market. This is a market where funds are traded. Short-term funds and long-term funds are bought and sold. You can use traded, you can use bought and sold. So a market where you can buy funds and also sell funds. That's the financial market. And that's where we are in now. Then the real asset market is a market for physical and tangible assets such as plants, machinery, even land and buildings. You hear about real estate and all that and all that. But that's not our focus now. Our focus is on what? The financial market. And in that financial market, we have two major categories. We have the capital market and we have the money market. The capital market is a market where long-term funds are traded. Long-term funds are bought and sold. And the dividing line between the financial market and money market is usually in terms of duration. If you are looking at funds that are given within 1 year tenure, you get them in the money market institutions. Then for markets that trade on long-term funds, you get them from the financial markets. However, with the emergence of technology, there is a closing gap. The gap between the capital market and money markets is being closed now. But for theoretical knowledge, it is good to arm yourself that you have the capital market, you have the money market. Capital market, you know, the apex authority in capital market is Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. You have Nigerian Stock Exchange, which is the operational and regulatory body, and we have the apex regulatory authority as SEC. So that's why by the time you grow your business, a time will come when you will not only need to get funds from banks, you may need to go to the stock exchange. Yes, you go to stock exchange and float stocks and float shares. Once you float your shares and you get funds through that means, those funds you get from the stock exchange or the capital market forms part of the equity funds. Do you understand? They form part of what? The equity funds. So when you are looking at your counterpart funding, the equity fund is part of your funds because those investors are not asking for those funds any longer. They have invested in it, So they are entitled to returns on investment in form of dividend. So that's the dichotomy between the capital market and the money market. So for the capital market, you have things like the bonds and the shares. Then for the money market, you have certificate of deposit and treasury bills, treasury certificates. These are short-term instruments, marketable instruments that you can get from the commercial banks. Hello?
Yes, doctor, I'm here. Go ahead.
Sure. So now we are going to look at the components of financial statements. The components of financial statements, we need to expose them, the major components, and how they have to be managed. Tomorrow we'll do more. You know, it's just for the sake of semantics that the two lectures were separated. I tell you, financial planning is a microcosm of financial management. Financial planning is a microcosm, it's part of the financial management. So tomorrow we'll do more of financial planning, which is also part of the financial management. But today I have been able to sieve out some points for us to look at in terms of components of financial statements. These financial statements are what you need. You look at what Mr. Sampson did today, and you see he mentioned things like balance sheet. But today I'm here to tell you that it is no longer called balance sheet. If that's the only thing you can take away today, we no longer call it balance sheet. It is called statement of financial position. That's the new nomenclature. But in some textbooks, you keep hearing balance sheet, but it has changed with the new nomenclature according to IS. I hope you are all there. So I said here that statement of financial provision, previously called balance sheet, shows the overall financial condition of your business enterprise. It lists in details the various assets the business owns and the liabilities owed by the business and the value of shareholders' equity or net worth of the business. Very simple. We have mentioned them. We are talking about, once you talk about statement of financial position, that is the formal balance sheet. Three major ingredients are there. One, we're talking about the assets, then the liabilities, and thirdly, the equity or the net worth. Sometimes you hear about net worth. So anytime you hear net worth, you are talking about what? Equity. Please note it down. Net worth, equity, same thing, one thing. So what is your asset? Asset talks about what the business owns. What you own in the business, OWN, is what? Your assets. It can be represented in form of land, vehicles, machines. These are what? Assets. But liability is what you owe. What does not belong to you. For instance, the loans you're talking about constitute what? Your liabilities. So you must be able to run a difference between the assets and the liability column. And the difference between, once your assets is more than your liabilities, they give you what? Your net worth, your equity. The difference between assets and liabilities gives you what? Your equity. So your assets should be more. What you own should be more than what you owe. And that's why some people have negative net worth. If what you owe is more than what you own, you have what we call what? Negative net worth. And once you have negative net worth, it erodes your capital. So it is important that your assets outweighs what? Your liabilities, to show what? Your net worth. And once your net worth is in a positive direction, you have the negotiating force to ask for more loans if you want more loans. So by the time you put in your assets and you put in your liability, if your asset is less than your liability, your asset will be showing negative, your liability will be showing negative. That's your owner's equity will be showing negative. And nobody will want to do that business, because that means that the business is almost not like your own. Did you hear me? That means that the business is almost not like your own. So because it is your stake in the business. Yeah. It is your stake in the business that is represented as the owner's equity. So these are strong negotiating forces that you need to show in your business plan or in your business proposal to let people know that you are interested in this business and that the business is yours and not others. So that's, we're talking about the liabilities are what? The business, the value of the shareholders' equity, that's the net worth. The financial report provides a picture of the financial health of the business. So if you are a startup, a startup, you may not have a statement of financial position now, except they require a forecasted statement. If they ask you for a forecasted statement or position, you can give them. But if you're a startup, they may not ask. But if you're already
go ahead, sir. We are here.
You must have. No, I'm not asking if you're here. We're talking about if the business is already in existence. If the business is already in existence, you need to show the statement of financial position. And that statement of financial position shows a picture, it's a snapshot of the health, the financial health of the business. You want to know how the heart of the business is pumping. You want to know running on oxygen or not.
Hello, sir.
And like what the two, yes, the assets and the liability. The assets are what you own, while the liabilities are what you owe. Just simple. And the difference between the assets and the liability is what we call the owner's equity or the net worth. What's the business worth? If you remove the liabilities from the asset, what is remaining? If nothing is remaining, then it means that you are just also you're also playing boy because you would have deducted, you would have removed your salary from the business and before and which is part of the liabilities or the expenses of the business and which will be netted off. So another important statement, or another important component of the financial statement is the statement of comprehensive income, which is previously called profit and loss statement. So the word profit and loss statement has ceased to exist. If you see it in old textbooks. It is no longer in the new nomenclature. So it is called statement of comprehensive income. And it shows where and how money goes in and out of the business for a period, usually monthly, quarterly, or annually. So with the new softwares that you have now, by the time you key in the components of this statement of comprehensive income, you get the profit, you get your profit or you get your loss. By the time you put in your expenses, you put in your revenue, you get your profit. So the report shows the strength of a business enterprise. The income statement shows your revenue, expenses, and profit. Gentlemen and ladies, the simple definition of profit is revenue less expenses. I say it again, that the simple definition of profit is what? Revenue less what? Expenses. So if your expenses is less than your revenue, you get what? Profit. If your expenses is more than your revenue, you have what? Loss. Yes, it might not be totally wrong to start a business and make loss. That brings us to the concept of break-even. It might not be wrong, I use the word, you cannot start a business today and you expect to make profit. Although some people do, and some people want that concept. But ideally, you should run a business for some time before you make a profit. Because you need to master the environment. You need to master the dynamics of the business. But if you're lucky to do a forecast, and this first month you start a business, you make a profit, then you are blessed. But nobody will reject your business proposal because for the first 6 months or even for the first 1 year, 2 years, well, first 1 year you are making a loss. Provided there is evidence that you will make profit. provided there is evidence that the business will stay in perpetuity. Yesterday, you were told, or you were talked about accounting concepts and conventions. Business is established to stay in perpetuity, to live forever. So if you start up a business and the first 1 year you make a loss, it is not a big deal. It is not a big deal. You can still get your loan approved. But there is consistency and there is continuity. And to get that continuity is to show costs. How much is your liability? How much is your expenses? How much, are you likely to make within this period? And when will you break even? So that brings us to break-even concept. So break-even is a point where you are neither making profit nor making loss. So that is a takeoff point for profit. I take it again. Break-even point is a point in business where you are neither making profit nor making loss. All your expenses, all you just do is that your expenses have covered what? That's your revenue have just covered your what? Cost. Your revenue is 50 million, 500,000, and your cost is what? 500,000. So 500,000 minus 500,000 is zero. Another definition of break-even point is a point where you are making what? Zero profit. A point where you are what? Making zero profit is the break-even point. So that's for the, we talked about statement of comprehensive income and statement of financial position. Last but not the least, we're going to talk about cash flow statements. Cash flow. If you look at what Mr. Sampson told us, that's Farmer Sampson, you saw that there's a cash flow projection, a cash flow statement, very important. Cash flow tells you what is the inflow of cash, how much cash is coming into the business, and how much cash is leaving. Gentlemen and ladies, it is important that you know that accounting relies on what we call accrual concepts. Accrual. Accrual concept means that you may not necessarily have received the cash, but you have made the sales. If you have made the sales, or if you have incurred the expenses, please record it. That's accounting. If you have incurred a cost, you record it. If you have made a sales, you record it under your revenue. But in your cash account, it will not show because you have not received the cash.